Salutation. We have a regular salutation, and we have a formal salutation. Both consist of 4 counts. To understand salutation, let's begin with number 1, regular. Count number 1 begins like this. Count number 2 is like this. Count number 3 and count number 4. Now we move into formal salutation. Formal salutation is for honoring the Grand Master. There are 4 counts, so let's see 1 and number 2, 3 and 4. Now that we've seen salutation, let's move into holds and grips. The first thing we address is the overlapping hold. Now we move to number 2, side thumb hold. Let's move to number 3, under thumb hold. Let's move to number 4, the reverse hold. From here we begin to do basic stances and footworks. There are 9 styles, so let's begin by looking at attention stance. Now we move to natural stance. To number 3, forward stance. To deep forward stance. To diagonal stance. To back stance. To cat stance. To hook stance. And to straddle stance. Look at the 9 basic stances and footworks combined. The first type of stance that we have is again the attention stance. We move into a natural stance. We move once again into the forward stance, keeping that motion fluid. From here we move and establish ourselves into what we know is to be the deep forward stance. Notice the posture. From here we move into a diagonal stance. Again, notice the posture. Now that we've established this posture, we then have the ability to move into a back stance. The back stance allows us the balance that we need to move into the cat stance. Look at the posture. The posture has established our ability to move into the hook stance. And from the hook stance, we now can move into what is called the straddle stance. Watch how this is done. Notice the posture. All 9 basic stances with the footworks. Let's watch as we proceed through all 9. We've begun at attention, moved to natural, to forward, to deep forward, to diagonal stance, into the back stance, into the cat stance, to the hook stance, and to the straddle stance. Once again, these are the basic stances for Eskrima. Let's look at all these blended together for the fluid motion. Attention, natural, forward, deep forward, diagonal, back stance, cat stance, hook stance, and straddle stance. Let's move now into the 12 basic strikes and defenses, keeping aware that 5 and 6 are both strikes and thrusts. 9 and 10 are also known as thrusts. Let's watch as we begin with the basic strike number 1. Let's move to number 2. Let's move to number 3. Let's move to number 4. Let's look at all 4 basic strikes for target points. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's look at the 5th basic strike, which is also a thrust. Let's look at it one more time. Let's look at the 6th strike, which is also a thrust. Let's move on to the 7th strike, and the 8th strike, and the 9th strike, which is also a thrust. So let's take another look at the 6th strike and thrust, 7th strike, 8th strike, 9th strike, which is also the thrust. So now let's look at all of the first 9 together. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Let's move to the last 3, beginning with the 10th. Let's move to the 11th and the 12th. Let's look at those last 3 again. We have the 10th, 11th, and 12th. Always keep in mind that the 10th is also a thrust. So let's look at the 12 basic strikes for target points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now that we've seen all 12 of these basic strikes, which have target points, let's begin by seeing how we would block these by using the basic defenses. Let's begin by looking at the first basic defense block. Let's look at number 2. Let's look at basic defense block 3. And the 4th basic defense block.